I have felt really uncomfortable oftentimes because of the way that people will view Alton and I. And they put that, like you were saying, people want to put us in a box, or people will, I make most of my music with millennials, and I created 2 millennials. So how's that for fun? And that's a generation I love, actually. I just absolutely, I'm like worshipful of millennials. I hate it when people take them down. I'm like, nah, these folks know what's going on. These kids, like, I shouldn't even call them kids because they're not these beautiful adults. Like, they've been given a gift that we weren't given in our generation, which was to tell people what they think and to say no to things that didn't feel right, and to try to drive their lives in the ways that they see fit. And they're so socially minded and civilly minded. This is a good generation of people, and this is a generation of people changing the world. But nonetheless, every once in a while, like, someone won't realize how old I am. Everyone sees me in the dark playing music, and then they meet, my 28 or my 23-year-old daughter, and it can really floor them. So I think that I'm like, yeah, this is my offspring. Isn't it pretty? Yeah. I love them. I'm not calling my children an it. I'm just saying, like, just like when you see their face, it's kind of a car crash in their mind. So I think that then seeing all of those layers of a person and it took me decades. I was in my 30s before I began really discussing this part of myself openly. And I would say then in the music world, it's only been in the past 3 or 4 years that I have, because I had to get past that husband and wife duo, kind of thing. So like, you have this great way of saying it, that you and your partner make music together. Like, that's a super fun way of discussing it, rather than just that sort of, it's like a big bulkhead, that people will,
Yeah. I hated it in my first band, which was with my first husband. It was always mentioned that I was his wife, or we were married. And I just felt like I could never have my own identity, because I was always the wife of somebody, and not that it's not that I didn't want to be a wife. It's just like, I don't want that to be like the first thing that's said about me,
Yeah.
And we don't ever hide that we're married in Landroid, but we don't, we don't sit there and focus on it, because that's not what's the most important thing about us, in my opinion.
Well, and I think that's the thing, is like, the other PR folks that I've worked on have always wanted to spin that narrative for us. And they're like, well, it's sexy, it's beautiful, people love love. Yeah, it's true. Love is punk. And Alton and I are massively in love, and we fall in love constantly. I mean, I've never stopped falling in love with this human. It just happened again recently. Like, I just felt like something new occurred. And then, I have this new partner that we're just really loving getting to know. Such a cool person. I could, and then that expression of all of our decades and love together, like, through that other person as well, is really neat. It's like, because when we develop a relationship with someone new, it is completely new. It is completely, Al and I always have our own thing, but I try to avoid that relationship hierarchy thing as much as possible. So if there's a new partner in my life, we pour ourselves very much into that. And you have all of these new, like, he has a relationship with her. I do, we have a relationship with one another through her. You end up with like 6 or 7 new relationships, and that can sound really complicated, but there's also something just really beautiful and relaxing and fun. And yeah, anyway, it's just part of life. part of my weird life, I guess.
Do you have to like set boundaries or anything, or do you just go, well, we'll just see how this evolves into whatever it is?
Yeah, because I'm not a big rule person that, like, like every once in a while,
I never would have guessed that about you.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, right? I'm like a little bit of a wild child. And it's like, well, I mean, raising my kids, I was super, I'm Midwestern and Southern by birthright, I guess. I was born in the Midwest, raised by Southerners, lived all over the Midwest and the South. So you better by God bring your new neighbor a pie. And, I'm really, I think I have that ingrained Midwestern work ethic / social politeness that I taught my children. So I did have sort of some rules in that regard about rules of engagement with humanity. I wanted to create good citizens, I guess, is my crunchy Midwestern old school way of being. But then the other part of me, say with relationships, is, I mean, I would say that we kind of, the way it usually goes is I sort of am getting to know someone first often, but Al likes that. I mean, he sort of, it's not that I'm vetting someone for him by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that I usually kind of leave. Because I don't do that, but I'm like, this is always so funny. Like, I don't talk about this, so this is really fun, but I don't have the right words, so pardon my awkwardness. But so usually, like with this new person, I got to know them, and I had like a 6-hour for 4 hour long date that he then participated in when he got home for like the next 2 hours, having cocktails and food and enjoying one another, and then we sit down and we do talk about things. Like we talk about, I guess, guidelines more than anything else. And when you have the kind of relationship we do, folks like to call it ethical non-monogamy, because everyone's got to have a label. I just call us being fleeky weirdos that we are. But that, so we do sit down and talk about, where do we think that this relationship is going? Is this casual? Is this something that's going to be more long lasting? My hope right now is that this one is going to be really long lasting. And so sure, we touch base a lot, and there's a tendency in sort of more poly-like relationships to kind of over communicate. So yeah, I think that happens, but it's really more about making sure people's feelings aren't getting hurt. Jealousy is not something either of us really experience a lot. We're kind of weirdos that way. Sometimes Al checks in and, he wants to make sure that if I'm flexing my gay, he gets to be part of the party. He wants to check in with me and make sure we're all always on the same page. We're always a team, but really not in an insecure way. It's just, I don't know how to say it. We're just always talking. We're always checking in.
It's like a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are the best of friends. So it's just kind of this, it just happens organically. And I know a lot of people who kind of create contracts and they have these ways that they want things to go and they need everything to be super scheduled. And I don't want people up my ass like that. So I'm just not going to do that to anybody else.
That's great.
That's that I love you, get the fuck away from me thing. It's like I really need people in my life who understand. Like the person I'm dating right now, this woman knows how to run her life. She's got 3 young boys. She's got a really cool job. She works from home. She really, so we're both such busy people. We're kind of trying to fit each other into each other's lives in the ways that we want. So we can't have some weird uptight schedule. I don't even do that to Al, and we've been together almost 32 years. I mean, we literally wake up every day and we're like, what are we going to do today? Well, I don't know. Let's, because we both work for ourselves. And then right now it's really weird because COVID. So every day we kind of wake up and we're like, day of the week, check. Coffee, check. Okay, what next? That's really...
Totally. I was just telling Greg how much I was like, I just really love being married to you. It hits me all the time, but it just hit me today. And I said, I love that we wake up and like, we both immediately get to work on our creative projects and we're like, it's fine, and then we'll come together. Maybe he'll come in and ask me to sing on something and then I'll come back in and do my writing or whatever. And we just understand that that's how it goes. And I was thinking, I don't think I could ever be in a relationship with someone who wasn't an artist because non-artists would never understand that flow,
Well, okay, yes and no. So yes, like, okay, primary partner vibes, you and Greg, like just gorgeous, right? By the way, you two are just beautiful. Alton and I, whenever we see you, we're like, we see your band photos come up and we always get little heart throbs, or we're Twitter pating for you. we're Landroid junkies, but we loved your old project too. So, and actually I just heard your old band, resurfacing with your former partner. And I was like, oh my God, you can do no wrong. You always just do the cool stuff. And then watching you go through, finishing your education and getting into acting and writing, it's just like, I just wanted to get that out there and say, like, it's so fantastic that you decided to do the podcast because you're an important woman and all of the different things that you are doing. I just wanted to say, it's like when you reached out to me to say, oh, I'd like to talk to you about some stuff, I got nervous. I was like, why me? Like, and it's just so neat. So I'm honored. And it's just so cool to see you putting all of these different things together and then kind of funneling that into the podcast so that you can create a bigger discussion. I just thank you. That's great. And you and Greg are awesome. And so I would say that all I'm going to throw out there is, okay, I probably have had to partner with somebody on the hyper creative spectrum that I'm on too. Like Alton and I are both just so, like you and Greg, are driven to do so many different. It's just kind of like you have to. I don't even know how to say it. That sounds so silly to say, but I'm just driven to do these things. But the person that I'm currently dating is not an artist at all. And it's really fun to have someone divergent. Like our lives are so similar. We have these commonalities we can come together on that are just brilliant. But then she's never been a musician. She's never been a visual artist, but she loves live music and festivals and she loves art, so she's a lover of these things. And that's actually been really fun to then see my world through the lens of someone that doesn't work in the creative industries. I like it. It's really cool. Because I think sometimes as an artist, I can see myself, especially during pandemic times, like, am I being lazy? Am I getting done what I need to, I don't know if you've had this, like the sort of pandemic brain, like the sort of
Oh, I definitely did at the beginning. I had a really hard time even getting out of bed at the beginning. I was just like, ugh, I couldn't handle it.
Right? Yeah, and I think because I was grieving my mom, I was like that early on, but then I felt driven to get to work. We release a song, blah, blah, blah. And then I've fallen into this like kind of COVID brain of late. And she's really good at shaking me out of it just with these cool little observations.
Hmm.
And so I would just say, like, I would just throw that out there. Yes, I need that creativity, but I'm experiencing seeing my creativity through these other eyes right now. And I really appreciate the mirror.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. It reminds me of the I'll Be Your Mirror song. I love that.
Oh,
Reflect who you are in case you don't know.
that's right.
I love that. I got to go listen to that record.
I know. No, okay, we're gonna have a day with the Velvet Underground thanks to
Yeah,
this.
I think so.
Anyhow,
That's you know what? That is a great way to wake up on Sunday morning with the song Sunday morning, and just
yes, right.
take it from there.
And it's so funny. My mother never understood my love of the Velvet Underground, and she's like, or she'd be like, "Why do you even listen to Lou Reed? That guy can't sing." And I'm like, he can. He sings to my neurons in a way that I just have never been able really to put to words, but it works.
Have you ever gone back and read the original reviews of the Velvet Underground? They are hilarious
No,
because you should find them.
no,
I mean, one of them is like, "This sounds like death. What is this? It's the word." Like I mean, they just get the press did not get it. But and I can understand why, because if
right,
you think about the music that was being made then, and then to hear the Velvet Underground it's like earth shattering. It's beyond what anyone could even imagine. That's just part of their brilliance. I mean, how did they even come up with that? I don't know. But
right.
anyway, I love the Velvet Underground.
Right? I will never forget, like, finally hearing Nico and being like,
Oh yeah.
"Rad." Like, just the way that she utilized her voice, and it
Oh,
just, like, kinda sounded like she was probably singing through a gallon of heroin, but nonetheless, it was just like that just timbre was so great and so funky and so strange, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, I can do anything with my voice that I want to," and I'd grown up being so trained to do things, I've studied opera, I grew up in church choirs, things like this, and that's a very regimented way to use the voice, and so she was just this personality, and to me, it was just incredibly inspiring, so
oh yeah. I used to try to sing like her all the time, and like you can really hear it on my first record that I ever made. And then I recorded with Gaze X. We recorded a record with him, and he
wow.
goes, I was singing like Nico, and he goes, "Hey, stop with all the prinky tinky stuff. Just sing like you sing."
That's so rad.
Anyway, he kind of taught me to sing in a way, because after that I started singing like myself. But in the beginning I tried to sing like Nico all the
Right?
time.
You
Yeah.
have a great voice. And for me, I would say, like, I was always trying to sound like my mom and my grandmother. And my mom spent time as a torch singer. My grandmother just sung like a bird, could whistle like one too. And yeah, all that churchy stuff really infused itself into my voice, and it took me a really long time. I think finding your own voice is really the hardest thing that you could do when you're singing, because there's so much influence around you. And I think really with the Spider Ferns, what ended up being cool is like ditching the city I mean, we've always lived pan-dimensionally, part-time in the country, part-time in the city. We've been really lucky to be able to do that. That's been awesome. But hiding away in my barn in the woods, cut off from the rest of the world, I think is when I finally relaxed and just let my voice become what it needed to be. And I feel really good about it now. I feel really comfortable. I've kind of created a lane for myself, and that's been that's something I didn't think I would.
Well, your voice is so beautiful, but it's also very strong, which is not something that you always get together. And
Mm.
so whatever happened in the woods, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, I think it's just it's a lot of pain to power, ultimately, which is such a that sounds so cheesy when I say shit like that. But the first 20 years of my life, that's so easy, super rough. And so I end up discussing it all in song. And I think that that's where a lot of, well, thank you. I mean, it's cool to hear you say powerful, because like if I'm playing acoustic guitar and singing to folks, I have a really hard time projecting over myself. I'm not that person who can sit around a campfire and really wow you. I'm really a little bit better if I can turn on a microphone and give me a little bit of reverb and.
Oh yeah, definitely reverb, some delay, put it all on there.
I don't. Yeah, I don't need it any more than you do. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's like there's something about sounding like a witch singing in a tube that really appeals to me, and I think also it's just yeah, there's something kind of fun and comfortable about sending those vocal waves out. But yeah, no, I think that it's but I never think of it as being powerful. So that's interesting.
I definitely do. That's so funny that
or strong.
We often don't see things in ourselves that other people do.
That's right. And I would also throw out there, I just realized you're still recording.
Oh yeah.
That but I just looked down and saw a little dot. But yeah, I would say that sometime it would be super fun to collaborate with you because I've always just really loved your music. So maybe at some point